Among the numerous great things that can be said about present-day Malayalam cinema, one of the prime call-outs would be how the industry talks about the time and space it belongs to. Consider the celebrated Malayalam films of this year: Joji, Nayat, Operation Java, Kala, or The Great Indian Kitchen. They all belong to different tones, genres, and universes. But put together, we get a distinct understanding of the multiple predicaments of the country and also an understanding of the times which we live in. Cinema, which is also a part of the historical archive of a state, is expected to do so, and Malayalam movies are at it almost always. Kuruthi, directed by Manu Warrior, released when there were open calls of violence going on in the country, thus becoming another remarkable addition to this list that gets down to the core of the ticking time bomb our country might be sitting on. It counters the time bomb head-on without any facades, in the mold of a home invasion which itself adds metaphorical layers to the narrative. Does Kuruthi succeed in handling this extremely sensitive subject? Let's try to discuss in this video analysis of Kuruthi, the new Malayalam film streaming on Amazon Prime. Before moving on, here's once again requesting you to subscribe to the channel and help us grow. While it doesn't cost you anything, it motivates us to do a lot. Kuruthi has a slow, nonchalant start, quite in contrast to what's in store from around the second quarter of the film. It is similar to the approach that Kala, directed by Rohit V.S. took early this year, where the silence and non-action of the initial phase of the film is an alarm for the storm that is awaiting around the corner. It introduces us to the characters in an extremely clever way, providing subtle understanding to what might have led to this storm. We get to know about the landslide accident that struck the families living in the small township, which took away lives of many. Our hero, Ibrahim, played by an effortless Roshan Mathews, lost his daughter and wife. Ibrahim's Hindu neighbors Suma and her brother lost their partners in the same landslide. It is as if this avalanche that happened in the township talks about the tragic past of our nation, marked by blood and death of both Hindus or Muslims and every other community that shaped and lived in this country. The struggles, crises and calamities, or the indifference of the governments across decades has been faced by both the Hindus and the Muslims alike. And yet, there is this underlying tension, organic differences and hidden agendas that separate the two communities that we find submerged in the deceptively slow-moving first 30 minutes of this film. Does this initial few minutes of non-action mirror our society, which was apparently happy and peacefully coexisting till only a few years back? Was this mutual coexistence of all these years just a facade? In portraying a microcosm of our society through this civilized township, not so far from the jungle, the film starts questioning from the onset. Else, how did a sudden invasion of one night make the familiar selves so unfamiliar? So unknown in just about no time. Kuruthi has so many difficult yet relevant questions in store for you, and thus the film which is bound to fetch polarized reactions. And then the invasion happens, with a distinct change in the film's color palette. There's the news of a Hindu store assistant who killed a Muslim shopkeeper in the town. That night, while Ibrahim and his family wait for Suma to bring them dinner, like perhaps so many times in the past, there's a knock on the door. In comes the frantic S.I. Satyam, played by Murali Gopi in an extended cameo, looking for a shelter for the night. He has the murderer with him in handcuffs, trying to save him from the Muslim radicals who want to avenge the death themselves. Kuruthi is about the series of events that gets triggered from here on. The tagline of the film reads, "A vow to kill, an oath to protect." Kuruthi intelligently sets up this unique premise where we have characters representing fundamentalism and liberalism literally clenching their fists at each other. And later in the film, when we witness killings that take place in an attempt to try and protect, the demarcation between these contrasting ideologies get blurred. It is as if, in trying to retain sanity in your world, you end up being insane yourself. The paradox of violence for the cause of non-violence. Ibrahim's father, played by a brilliant Mamu, says that the power of hate surpasses everything else in this world, as we witness for each of the characters of our story. Hate is that primal emotion that we pass on across generations, he says, something that only grows in proportion and never decays. It's extremely courageous for an Indian film dealing with an immensely sensitive topic to put across such a statement head on. And thus, Kuruthi is not an easy film to watch or appreciate. It hardly leaves you with any kind of redemption or respite. Kuruthi does well in all the technical aspects as well. The action choreographies are well done, particularly the low-lit night fight sequences in the forest. So is the background music or camera work, which add to the tension of the premise. The script is the real star, and it feels amazing to watch an action film making room for so much silence in between its dialogues and set pieces. Makers of thrillers seem to believe these days that compressing as many action set pieces or punchlines as possible is the recipe for an engaging thriller. Unfortunate to say the least. So, it feels great to find that director Manu Warrior or writer Anish Pallayal understand the importance of silence and dread. The script is also laden with multiple references that work for the overall narrative. The back-to-back references of animals towards the start of the film add so much more meaning when the plot thickens. The beautiful looking town on the hills and the references of snakes feels like the biblical metaphor of Eden, where mutual hatred is the actual snake that invades. At the end of the film, references of original sin and the Kabil story establishes the references further. The script very interestingly keeps on building onto this power of hatred. A young man preparing for IIT, supposedly among the top level of merits in the country, is immersed in hatred. Another young man remembers the hate he faced in Paris more than the overall exposure to the Western world. Thus, Kuruthi also questions the idea of education that prevails in our society. Education which only enables us for cosmetic benefits, but in no way shifting us from our primal animal instinct. To the mention of Shah Jahan as an unjust ruler, Mamu, who has the very best lines in the film, says that there were good rulers as well, like Akbar, Bahadur Shah or Shah Rukh Khan. It calls for a joke, but at a meta level also refers to the sorry state of a nation where the person who has been celebrated as a king, the heartthrob of the entire country, is now all of a sudden being referred by his religious identity. The politics of identity is the core of Kuruthi, and in recurring shots of multiple characters within the limited space, the power structure emerging out of the associations of identity are continuously emphasized. Lastly, let's talk about Prithviraj, who appears only after 45 minutes in the film. The faith in the supporting cast and the script is such that the superstar doesn't need to do anything other than playing his character diligently, which he does extremely well. He doesn't choose a white character for himself, perhaps suggesting that negativity and hatred might exist even among the persons whom we love and look up to. Hats off to Prithviraj, not an easy choice because of the character that he played. And then of course, backing up such a relevant content financially, which many of our celebrated stars wouldn't be comfortable in picking up. And in spite of such courage, there's debate where Kuruthi plays at the convenient narrative of good Muslim versus bad Muslim. Whether the Hindu characters were painted brighter, or whether in Mamukoya's comment towards women, even the good Muslims are portrayed to be regressive. Well, we do not endorse to any of these ideas and feel that the film is beyond the Hindu-Muslim narrative. The film is about hatred and what happens to a loving man when there's hatred around him. It is the story of Ibrahim, the father who fulfilled all the commandments and yet cannot find the promised land for his sons and daughters. That is all for today. Did you like our analysis? Do you think we missed out on some facets of the movie? Please let us know in the comments section. Also tell us what other movies shall we review for you. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more.